Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept a humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Welcome to today's morning Bhagavata class. Today's class will be on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, Text 8, and it will be given from Her Grace Vrindavaneswari Radhika Mataji from ISKCON Philadelphia. Hare Krishna, Mother, please accept a humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, please accept mine. All glories to Prabhupada. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you. It's all yours.
Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giravardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatarya Sata His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Asatarya Sata His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantagota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Girdha Govardhan Ki Jai, Mayapurnam Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, ISKCON Harrisburg Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Haribol. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, Hare Hare Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Patarane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashita Desha Tarane. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritha Naram Chaiva Narottama Devam Sarasvatim Vyasyam Chatotaya Madhurya Nastaprayasya Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloki Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So here we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. It's last day of February. This is Canto 1, Chapter 15, Verse 8. And the theme, the chapter is the Pandavas retire timely. So I'll read the Sanskrit 3 times and you can repeat. Yatsani davaham ukandava magnyadam indram cha samarganam tarashvityatya labda sabda maya kritbhuta silpamaya digbyo hiram nirpaityo balam advridhe Yadsani davadham udkadamba ragnidam indram cha samarganam tarashyadvitya labda shabda maya krita bhuta silpamaya digbyo hiranripa patayo balam advarite Yadsani davadham udkadavam agnidam indram cha samarganam tarashyadvitya Labda sapta maya kritbuta silpa maya digbyoraham nipreto balam advarete. Anyone else? Like to give it a shot? And this is a tough verse today. Can everyone hear me?
I'm gonna try, Vrindavane. She's a son of Suya. I've not been well the past few days.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's
Okay.
okay. So I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Yatsanita vaham tu kandavaga kanyadam Indram cha samaraganam tarasha vichitya Labda savamaya kritam tutsilpamaya Digbyo harandri patayo balemata brite. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? I'll go into translations if not. I know this is one's a tough verse to chant.
I'm trying.
Great, excellent.
Hare Krishna. Sani vadavaham tu. Oh, that's a long one.
I know.
Sani vadaham tu kandavan agnayidam indram cha samara ganam tarasa viditya labda sava maya rita vita shilpa maya digyo haran nipatayo balim advarete. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Go into the word for word. Yat, whose, Sanido, being nearby, aham, myself, you, note of astonishment, Kandavam, the protected forest of Indra, king of heaven, Agnaye, unto the fire god, Adam, delivered, Indram, Indra, Cha, also, Sa, along with, Amara Ganam, the demigods, Tarasha, with all dexterity, Vijitya, having conquered, Labda, having obtained, Sabha, assembly house, Maya Krita, built by Maya, Abhuta, very wonderful, Shupa, art and workmanship, Maya, potency, Digbaya, from all directions, Aharan, collected, Ripataya, all princes, Balam, presentations, Adhare, brought, Te, your. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradev, along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Kandava forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Kandava forest. And thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of the Rajasuya Yajna and paid due tributes. Purport. The demon Maya Danava was an inhabitant of the forest Kandava, and when the Kandava forest was set on fire, he asked protection from Arjuna. Arjuna saved his life, and as a result of this, the demon felt obliged. He reciprocated by building a wonderful assembly house for the Pandavas, which attracted the extraordinary attention of all the state princes. They felt the supernatural power of the Pandavas, and thus without grudge, all of them submitted and paid tributes to the emperor. The demons possessed wonderful and supernatural powers to create material wonders, but they are always disturbing elements of the society. The modern demons are the harmful material scientists who create some material wonders for disturbance in the society. For example, the creation of nuclear weapons has caused some panic in human society. Maya was also a materialist like that, and he knew the art of creating such wonderful things. And yet Lord Krishna wanted to kill him. When he was chased both by the fire and by the wheel of Lord Krishna, he took shelter of such a devotee as Arjuna, who saved him from the wrath of the fire of Lord Krishna. Devotees are therefore more merciful than the Lord, and in devotional service, the mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord. Both the fire and the Lord ceased from chasing the demon as soon as both of them saw that the demon was given shelter by such a devotee as Arjuna. This demon, feeling obliged to Arjuna, wanted to do him some service to show his gratefulness, but Arjuna declined to accept anything from him in exchange. Lord Krishna, however, being pleased with Maya for his taking shelter of a devotee, asked him to render service unto King Yudhisthira by building a wonderful assembly house. The process is that by the grace of the devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained, and by the mercy of the Lord, a chance to serve the Lord's devotee is obtained. The club of Bhimasena was also a gift of Maya Danava. Omekyana Tamaranjashya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmulatamyena Tashme Shri Guruvena Maha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakada Madam Dadati Satvadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadara Shri Sati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Chara Swamaniti Namane Snekta Chaita Supaneta Vagmanam Charasa Plutam Prabhupada Prananam Bhakti Chara Panam. So I'll read the purport or the translation again. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradev, along with his demigod associates, and thus enabled the fire god to devastate the Khandava forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Khandava forest. And thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of Rajasuya Yagya and paid you tributes. So, in this chapter, actually, when Arjuna's coming home, he's expressing to King Yudhisthira all of the wonderful things that Krishna has done in his association with the Lord, and really remembering the Lord, remembering all of the, the ways that the Lord has shown his power, shown his opulence, shown his mercy, and this verse is another example of that. And there's a couple of things when I was preparing for this class that came to mind. One of them is really the opulences of the Lord, and how we can see that through this specifically, even this chapter, we can see all of the things that the Lord has done. He's had, he is the ability of man, right? So we know that here Arjuna says, because he was near me, it was possible to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven. And this is that evidence of him being Krishna being the ability of man. Krishna is the all pervading. He is the all powerful. And so here we see that Arjuna was empowered by Krishna to carry out this act. Now, going into this pastime a little bit, I was wanting to dive into what was happening in this particular pastime with Maya. So I thought I'd delve into this a little bit of the backstory here, because I thought it's always interesting to know when you see these names pop up in the Bhagavatam, you see this kind of cast of characters, who they are and where they came from. And so I thought I'd share a little bit about the background of Maya. And Maya Danava. So Maya Danava is actually the one of the sons of the Kashyapa. Kashyapa Prajapati. He's married three daughters of Daksha. He married Aditi, Diti, and Danu. And so Maya was born to Diti as the Danavas. And so Maya actually, so the reason he was able to build this great assembly house, because he was very proficient in architecture. He was a great architecture. He was great at building and constructing things. And so he married, he went to the forest, he lived in this Khandava forest for years with his wife. And when Arjuna was looking, trying to defeat Indra, then, this is where he brought Agni Dev in to destroy the fire. And it says here that Krishna and Arjuna offered the Khandavan, the forest, to Agni Dev as a feast. And this is because this was also Indra's land, and there was, they were defeating Indra. So Agni Dev came in, he was feasting on the forest, which means he was burning it down to ash. And while Agni was feeding on the forest, everyone began to flee. But Maya was hiding, and he approached Arjuna to gain some protection. And so Arjuna stopped Agni Dev and Krishna. So Krishna was shooting down all of the demons in the forest with his arrows. And Maya and Agni Dev was, of course, burning the forest down, and Arjuna said, stop. He brought all this in. He brought Agni Dev in to feast on the forest. And Krishna came in by Arjuna's side to shoot down the demons. But because Maya appealed to him and came to him for shelter, Arjuna took mercy on him. He took mercy on him and he said, okay, everyone stop, just let's call this off, let's stop. And so he was saved. And so Maya felt such great gratitude for Arjuna. He became a loyal follower of Arjuna. And he, in turn, wanted to build this assembly house for King Yudhisthira and for the dynasty. We know from the prior chapter that the great assembly house was better than any assembly house in the heavens and in the spiritual sky. This because the Pandavas were so potent, they were so elevated, and so now we have this assembly house that is going to be built by Maya. And he comes in and builds this great, beautiful assembly house for the Pandavas. And so that's, and then he settles down at the shelter of Lord of Arjuna and Lord Vishnu. And so it's one thing that we see here is that he took shelter of a devotee. And there's many different examples of how taking shelter of a devotee can bring one to the lotus feet of the Lord. And in doing some research on this particular verse and thinking about taking shelter, verse 932 came to mind, and it's and of Bhagavad Gita. It's, O son of Pritha, those who can take shelter of me, though they be of lower birth, they can attain the supreme destination. So here in Prabhupada's, in his purport, he says explicitly that those who receive devotional service and the guidance of a pure devotee are so strong that there's no discrimination between the lower and higher classes of men. It says that even the lowest, who are the chandalas, the dog eaters, can be purified by association with a pure devotee. And so it's really it's a really wonderful thing that when anyone, a demon can even come to the shelter of Arjuna. Demons can even receive that mercy. But Krishna was ready to kill Maya. Krishna was armed and ready to fire, and Arjuna said, no, hold off. And it's because Arjuna's desire to show mercy against the demon, even though he himself was also casting this against them by bringing Agni Deva and by bringing Krishna in, he was the one that incited or brought this about onto the demons. He's the one that stopped it because of this plea from one of the demons. And so we can see here, and Prabhupada says that the devotees are more merciful than the Lord, and in devotional service, the mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord. And so that's pretty powerful. When I was thinking about this verse and thinking about the power of surrendering to a devotee, what we're speaking about here is the devotee showed compassion, showed mercy, showed love, even, and this is the power of a devotee to be able to help ignite the devotional fire in someone is tremendous. And as I was really thinking about what that means, what does that mean to really ignite that in someone else? Well, we know that we all have this devotional seed, the seed of devotional service. We are covered. We're conditioned souls. We're jivas where we've been covered over by the material energies. And how do we become uncovered? Well, oftentimes it may be by the mercy of another devotee. For some, it may have been coming in direct contact with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was the most merciful of all. Srila Prabhupada was he gave mercy to so many different devotees. He was living in the Bowery with young, youth that were smoking and doing drugs, and he just lived there with them for a period of time. And by that mercy that he showed, some of them came to Krishna consciousness and became, moved forward in the movement in really powerful ways. And it was Srila Prabhupada's mercy that really took this movement as far as it did. And it was really also going back from Srila Prabhupada, it was the mercy of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who showed that to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was a householder when he first met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he accepted Prabhupada as that householder. and Prabhupada was, for many years, he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He met his Guru Maharaj, in his 30s. And it took him until he was in his, 60s, late 50s and 60s, till he was really able to separate and move and start doing a lot of things in this movement. He wrote during that time, during those 20 or 30 years between meeting his Guru Maharaj and then moving into more of a sannyas role, but he wasn't really fully able to take on what he did until he was older. And that mercy that his Guru Maharaj showed him was really the mercy, because Prabhupada took shelter of him. Prabhupada ultimately took shelter of his Guru Maharaj, and took shelter of the guidance from his Guru Maharaj. And the guidance from his Guru Maharaj is spread Krishna consciousness to the West, write books, publish books. These were the messages. And Prabhupada didn't have that much face-to-face time or conversations with his Guru Maharaj, not like today where we're sending emails or, able to have all these interactions. Prabhupada received this instruction, preach to the West, print books. And that was mercy in itself, because he was giving Prabhupada very clear instructions. And that is a great benediction, a great boon that he had given his disciple. He'd given his disciple very clear instruction. Now it was up to Prabhupada to really decide what he was going to do with that. And Prabhupada chose to take those instructions very seriously, which brought him here and brought him to the US and brought him to the West to be able to preach and bring Bhagavad Gita into the different translations so that we can all take that mercy as well. And so taking receiving the mercy of a pure devotee is ultimately very powerful. And what that does is, when a pure devotee shows us mercy, when the pure devotee shows anyone mercy, they are showing, like I said, they're showing compassion, they're showing understanding. And sometimes they might be showing a strong hand, because sometimes mercy can be delivered in the form of a correction or in the form of some other chastisement that wakes us up. And that's a huge benediction too, to receive a chastisement from our Guru Maharaj. That's, we might think, oh no, I was chastised, but really it means that the Guru Maharaj, our Guru, took the time to help us identify a problem. And that time alone is mercy. Not only that, our Guru Maharaj took the time to help us grow and to point out areas where we might be failing in our Krishna consciousness or slipping. And so any pure devotee, anyone that's an elevated devotee that can share with us that mercy, whether it is through a chastisement or through protection, is giving us the opportunity to come closer to the Lord, because they're a servant of the Lord. And if we're serving the servant, right, we're dasa and udasa and adasa and adas, we're the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant. And what that means is that, we can strive in our life to serve Krishna, but we don't have that opportunity to serve Krishna directly. We only truly have the opportunity to serve to serve the servant of the servant of the servant. To serve Krishna directly is very, very elevated and can be very difficult to do. We can do worship, on the altar, maybe a pujari, serving the Lord in that way. And that's a wonderful service. Most of us are likely not pujaris or having the opportunity to do pujari work. We can do service and, on our own home altar. However, when we serve the servant of the servant, what we're serving is we're helping to please the Lord, because when his devotees are pleased, he is pleased. And this is such a simple process. It's such a simple message. Yet, how do we carry that out? What does that look like? And so serving the servant is something that we do by taking care of another devotee, by helping to do service on an activity that they're doing service within, listening, being there to listen and hear and to receive instruction from a devotee, from a more elevated devotee. So receiving instruction and attending classes, that's even in a sense serving, because we're giving them the opportunity to impart knowledge and wisdom to us. And that's a service, because the more that the servant can serve, the more they're also able to grow in their own path of pleasing the Lord. So it's kind of a reciprocation. It's not just it's a one-way thing that, the servant of the servant, or the one being served just sits back and just like, yes, I'm on this Vyasasan, I am wonderful, and everyone will bring me prasadam and, bow at my feet. That's not what it's about at all. The one being served is truly serving, reciprocating, because their service is really to protect and to provide guidance and knowledge to those that are serving them. And also the servant of the servant, this is a long chain. It doesn't just stop at the person getting served. They're also hopefully serving some other devotees. And so then it becomes this long chain of service. And it's really, if you think about it, it's really a beautiful thing. If we're always able to receive service and provide service, that's important. And I know sometimes we see devotees fighting over who's going to take their plate and put it in the trash. We've seen this so many times with festivals or events where you're sitting with a group of devotees and everyone has their paper plate, and someone goes to try and take the plate and throw it away, and the devotee's like, no. But what if we let them, if they're stepping up to do service, we are allowing them to do that service, we're receiving that service, and we can reciprocate by taking someone else's plate next to us, right? I mean, so by not allowing others to serve us, we are also preventing that person from being able to do their devotional service and their activities as a devotee. So it's a give and take, and this is something that I've really observed and learned over the years about serving the devotees and taking shelter in the devotees, is that it's really a very big responsibility. Because when someone, like I said, when you're doing service to a devotee, a senior devotee, another devotee, they hopefully are seeing that service that you were doing for them as their responsibility to take, to take care of you in that process of service. And that is, in my opinion, and in my observation and my conversations with some other devotees, this is vital. This is absolutely critical. It's critical within ISKCON. It's critical within our lives that the devotee that's providing service must be taken care of properly. They must be. And because here, Arjuna, because he came to him for shelter, Arjuna took care of him. And then he reciprocated by building him. And Arjuna said, no. So now Arjuna was preventing him from reciprocating service. But Krishna stepped in and said, no, you build that. You do that. And Krishna stepped in and said, I'm pleased with you that you took shelter in Arjuna, this great devotee. I'm pleased with you. Arjuna reciprocated by saving your life. And now you can reciprocate by buying him and by building him a beautiful, otherworldly assembly house. And that relationship can continue on. You serve and receive. You serve and you receive. You serve and receive. You serve and receive. And so this is, I think, one of the important messages from this verse is the idea of service and reciprocation. And so as we're coming into big festival week, I know everyone's probably working very hard to make sure that things are done very nicely for Lord Chaitanya on Monday. There's festivals going on this weekend. It's a very, very busy time. And how do we, as we're going into these festival weekends, how do we also, as the servants, make sure that we're doing our service well, and as the one being served, make sure that those who are doing the service are taken care of, and how can we reciprocate for that? And the reciprocation might just be some love, understanding, compassion, and also receiving of that service. And so it's really it's a simple process, but it's one that I think can be overlooked. I've seen it be overlooked, and sometimes I get a little bit emphatic, I guess, about how we can make our movement better, how we can improve on some of the ways that things are functioning within the movement. And I really think that this is an important point worth considering, is the service mentality, that it's looked at in a relationship kind of way. And so these are some of the key points I really wanted to drive home today. I mean, I could kind of just ramble on for a little bit more, but I really just wanted to drive home a few of these points. The one other thing that I wanted to bring about, which is kind of a different topic, but Prabhupada in this purport did talk about the materialists and how they are, can really turn things around in society for the not for the benefit of humankind. And this is the demonic mentality. So when we're seeing this occurring in society, we're seeing it everywhere around us, that this material mentality, and by trying to pull people away from devotional life, or pull people deeper into a materialistic mentality, or worse yet, by like what Prabhupada's example was. He gave the example of creating disturbances, like creating the nuclear warheads and things like that can be really dangerous. So this is not going to go away. The fact that there have been demons all throughout creation, and they're here too. So it's really important to understand that these things exist all throughout. And should we be going out and going to these people and trying to save them? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think that's really the point. The point is that this with this verse, the demons are existing. They exist here in modern day as well. And so ultimately, because this particular demon took shelter of Arjuna, he received an extra benediction. We know that Lord he's the one that the Vamanadev put his head on. Help me out here. The name of Baladev. So I knew it was going to come to me. So Baladev also took shelter, right? He was the king of the demons, but ultimately he took shelter of the Lord directly, but he didn't realize it until the end, when he realized that he was working with Vishnu, not Vamanadev. And as it happens, just kind of bringing the story around. So I mentioned that Maya Danava was actually the son of Kashyapa, and Kashyapa married 3 sisters. One of them was Aditi, and Aditi, and Danu. So Aditi actually is the mother. She's the one that had prayed and prayed and prayed to have the Lord as her son. So it's always interesting to see how things intertwine, that Aditi being the mother of, the mother of Lord Vamana. And so this is kind of the story expands. That's how Bhagavatam kind of works, is these overlapping, expanding stories, intertwining of things. So like I said, I don't want to, this verse today, I wanted to really just focus on the servant of the servant and really leave it with those thoughts. And I will just open up for questions, and we can end a little early today if there's, some feedback or comments.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. I'll try to speak.
No, I'm sorry, not feeling well.
I really like the last few sentences where Prabhupada says that the process is that by the grace of the devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained.
Mm-hmm.
And by the mercy of the Lord, a chance to serve the Lord's devotee is obtained. And to me, it sounds like it's a two-way reciprocation process.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one or the other. Can you elaborate or shed some light, Prabhu? What does it mean by this phrase, grace of the devotee? That seemed to sometimes not be very clear.
Yeah, of course. So the grace of the devotee, it's really the mercy. It's by the devotee is accepting this responsibility for Maya in this example. And because Arjuna is a great devotee of the Lord, he's passing that mercy of the Lord through to Maya. And so in our own lives, in Prabhupada, like I said, to use a kind of a more current example, Prabhupada was, incredibly merciful, and it's by his grace through Prabhupada's relationship with Krishna that he was able to pass that on to his disciples. And it's because he provided that shelter, he passed that on. And the reciprocation is really also that the Lord is reciprocating too. The Lord is seeing that his disciple, or that his devotee, is also passing this on to their disciples, whether or not they've done anything to earn it. Like Maya just asked, and Arjuna said, okay, I will, I'll save you. So whether or not there was anything really, any reason for it, Krishna sees that his devotee has taken that step and provided that mercy, and he's seen that through, because Arjuna is a great devotee of the Lord. And that is the thing here, is that Arjuna is a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada was an incredibly pure devotee of the Lord, and he passed that mercy on. If he hadn't had that, if he wasn't a devotee of the Lord, then none of this would have happened. None of us would be here. And the Lord reciprocated because of Prabhupada's devotion to the Lord and his devotion to igniting that relationship in all of us. Because of that relationship, the Lord reciprocated by also giving us that mercy. And Parikshit Prabhu, I'd love some comments from you.
Hare Krishna, please accept on the basis of all glory to Prabhupada. Just a little add-on, and no questions. As you were talking about the mercy of the devotee, the pure devotee of the Lord, and you used Srila Prabhupada as an example, which is a very great example. We all know what he's done. then the thought hit me, yes, a devotee, a Vaishnava, is supposed to chant 64 rounds. And that's what Srila Prabhupada said. When the devotee started trying to chant 64 rounds, they couldn't make it with all the services. They went to him and said, we can't really complete 64 rounds. But that is what a Vaishnava is supposed to do to go back to Godhead. And Srila Prabhupada said, all right, then chant 32 rounds. And so they tried 32 rounds, and still some people were not able to make it during the day, 32 rounds with the services. So they went back to him, and now Srila Prabhupada said, all right, half of that, 16, absolute minimum. But that was 64 rounds all the way down to 16 rounds by the mercy of the pure devotee. And so now when we start Krishna consciousness, we can chant and we say, okay, try. So we chant 2 rounds and 4 rounds. And later on, as they take it more seriously, they get to 16 and they find out that it's not as hard to do 16 rounds. I'm sure people that try to do 64 rounds now, very, very few people in ISKCON do that. There are some that do, but that shows the mercy of the pure devotee by Krishna allowing the opportunity to go back to Godhead, chanting way less than 64 rounds. That's one big example. Hare Krishna.
It's an excellent example. And I think that Prabhupada had so many examples like that. That's one of many where he really saw what his disciples were able to do. And again, that's an example of, he saw they were serving him sincerely and trying to serve the Lord sincerely. So he took care of them. You know, Prabhupada made every effort to try and take care of the devotees. And even in the early days, he cooked for them. You know, Prabhupada was doing everything. He cooked, he did the deity worship, he did everything and provided the lectures. And so that's great mercy, that's great love, because he was, again, also reciprocating. And with that, by Prabhupada showing so much love and mercy and compassion to his own disciples, they were receiving that also from Krishna. And that's the benediction. That's the benediction of the pure devotee that they provide, is that they are, when they're giving this mercy, that they're also giving the Lord. They're giving that relationship to the Lord, and that's powerful. And so that's that seed of devotional service is watered, it's nurtured, it's nourished, and this is through the mercy of the devotion, through the mercy of the guru, and so it's the guru and the senior devotees that provide that mercy through that water the seeds for us. And that's why relationships, bhakti is a relationship, and why relationships are so important in our path, because bhakti is a relationship with Krishna, and it's a relationship of service and love and surrender. And so we look within our own relationships with the other devotees, or with our loved ones, and we can take that also to say, these are relationships, and if I can't have a balanced, loving relationship within my own life with other devotees, then how can I have a relationship with Krishna? So we have to work on both fronts. We have to work on the relationship with the Lord, work on the relationship with our with other devotees, with our guru, and serving and seeking shelter, and that mercy will then come through, and it will come through from Krishna. And that is really the message here, that's when those relationships are in harmony, then Krishna's mercy will shine through very clearly. Any other reflections?
As you were speaking, Prabhu, I was even, one thing that came to my mind when you spoke about devotee relationships, the importance of devoted relationships, reminded me of the importance of one of the 6 loving exchanges by Srila Rupa Goswami.
Mm-hmm.
Revealing one's mind in confidence,
Mm-hmm.
which is also another wonderful way, I feel, of developing devotee relationships.
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we think that devotee relationships is just on a surface level. It's just serving and then meeting the needs and that's it. But actually, devotee relationships is so much more deeper. It's like the heart core,
Mm-hmm.
and it's making me reflect on there has to be a logical reason why Srila Rupa Goswami said revealing one's mind in confidence is because that is what's going to really bind us in devotee relationship.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Where it's like so true and deep and honest, So
Yeah.
that was coming to my mind.
It's a great example. It's I believe I think it's the first one to reveal one's mind and to listen confidently, give prasadam, receive prasadam, give gifts, receive gifts. And if we don't take that to heart, we're good at giving prasadam, and even gifts. However, the revealing one's mind confidentially and receiving confidentially, that means that there is a deeper connection there that one must protect. And that's a true devotional relationship. The other two are easy, but it's the first one that kind of solidifies the devotional relationship right there. So yeah, thank you, Prabhu. That's an excellent point.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I was listening to a lecture about a year or two ago by a speaker in India where she said that the first four we do it so wonderfully, giving and accepting prasadam and giving, accepting gifts, but the last two is a big challenge for us.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult if we do not apply and work on the last two, because that's going to deepen devotee relationships, So that was a good point that you shared, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Parikshit Prabhu said this requires trust. It's true. It's true. That's why I really was emphasizing when we are the dasa, nudasa, 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 we're servant of the servant, but the responsibility of the receiving devotee is to take care of the one providing service. And I think that is taken care of by doing that is, hearing confidentially, receiving confidentially, maybe that's the responsibility. Take care of the servant well, and that the reciprocation is there, and that is also their service, and serving back is providing service to the servant through that relationship so it's important. It's how we can build a strong society, because the society has to be built on the foundation is relationships. We are a bhakti yoga society. So that means that the foundation of the society needs to be strong relationships. So how do we cultivate strong relationships? We do that through what we just described.
Prabhu, you have a couple of more minutes for me to ask another question.
Sure.
How can one, and it's a very interesting point that Parikshit mentioned, it requires trust.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I come across situations with devotees where trust is always a big block for people, because either they have gone through broken trust, they don't trust anybody. And I know that His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami used to say that if you don't trust people, it's because you don't trust yourself. So how can one develop trust, Prabhu?
Yeah, I think in Kali Yuga, it's the age of lies, quarrels, and hypocrisy. That alone makes it really challenging. I mean, when we're living in an age of lies, quarrels, and hypocrisy, trust is the first thing to go, because those all break trust down. Those three things are inherently the antithesis of trust. So we first have to acknowledge that within ourselves, there is this conditioning, and rightly so, conditioning from material activities that may have created walls against trusting. And there's different kinds of trust. I mean, we can trust someone to, show up on time and do their seva, right? So we have trust in someone that they're going to just do what they said they're going to do. We can trust someone that they are, generally, not going to go out and malign someone because they're not out to hurt other people. Trusting someone with our own feelings and our inner thoughts, that is a confidential relationship that we shouldn't and we wouldn't want to hand over so easily to just anybody. And so trust is something that is cultivated over time, and you test the waters with someone. If there's someone that, a devotee that you're cultivating a relationship with, you test the waters with trust. And it's providing a little bit of sharing one's mind and seeing how they handle it. Do they go out and tell everyone about it? Do they judge you with what you're sharing? And if that's what you're receiving back, maybe you're like, okay, maybe this isn't the person that I can fully trust. And so, like I said, trust is it's a word that's used a lot, but there's so many degrees of trust. And I think when we are talking about truly trusting someone with our own spiritual growth and our own heart and thoughts and feelings, that's a very, very, very deep relationship. And in this material world with Kali Yuga and all of the conditioning, even within devotees, we all have our own conditioning that could break that trust. And so we have to be judicious in how we move forward with any kind of relationship that requires more than just a kind of surface level trust, and really use our discernment to understand that we can't just trust everyone with what we're feeling or with our spiritual growth, and that we have to find the right person, and that might be just one person. And that's okay, as long as that one person provides the right balance of what you're needing and the nourishment and the reciprocation. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does, because like you said, there are trust on different levels, and it's a process,
Mm-hmm.
And I think and I think one of the issues with trust is that when one confides in someone, one does not want to be judged.
Right.
And when one is not judged, then one feels, okay, I can share my heart and my mind no matter where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever level I'm at. At the same time, I think also when one gets to that space of feeling not being judged, then one should also be able to receive guidance. It's not that I trust you because I'm safe, I feel secured, I'm not going to be judged, so I can just come and dump all my problems on you. But no, it's going, because sometimes there's a misunderstanding of trust.
Mm-hmm.
I trust you to be the soundboard, but at the same time, where is the guidance to be a better person?
Mm-hmm.
As relationships is meant to help us to become a better person, not to be stagnant on one level.
Exactly.
Is what I'm thinking,
Yeah, it's a really good point about, when in a trusting relationship, we're not using them as just a dumping ground. That's the key, is the reciprocation, that the other person can also share their thoughts, but also provide insight into, a situation. And that's a true trusting relationship, whether it's with a senior devotee or with just a friend, devotee friend. Yeah. Those are all really important points. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yeah, I hope
Are there any
feel
questions
better.
from devotees? had a rough weekend and I'm like dead down.
Yeah.
I would like to ask devotees if any questions, any comments, reflections, thoughts. Please do unmute yourself. You can just jump right in before we end the class. And if there isn't, we thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Vrindavaneswari, for such a wonderful class on, really developing deep relationships and taking care of devotees and taking care of one. That's a very good point. We thank you all for joining us. Vanchakaptibhyascha, Kripasindhubheva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Have a wonderful day. Feel better.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you, Prabhu. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.